And so I used to be the director of millennial engagement. So my job was to work for Monsanto to help people have a different way of understanding what's the value of GMOs? Why is it that farmers use pesticides? And when I was there, the people that needed to be their minds changed on it was the left. It was the left being like, oh, GMOs are unsafe, and like we eat all these healthy foods. It was very much of what was going on. Then the GMO fight rapidly went away, and I think in large part because the activists, they figured out that the money was not in anti-GMO, it was in the glyphosate giant lawsuits, the class action lawsuits. And then it all just kind of calmed down. We had COVID and all kinds of cultural change. And during that time, there was this giant flippening that occurred where the people that were on the right that used to be like, all this stuff we're doing in ag, it's okay. We got to trust what's out there. They now are the conspiracy theorists. They're the ones saying, like, I don't trust anything. And the left is the one that's like, no, trust the science, and big pharma is just great. And so this, I think, is going to catch ag way off guard, because farmers that normally used to have a political home with the right that also supported their use of technology, that right, I think, is eroding, and they're not going to have that. I think the strategies that worked 5-10 years ago to try and protect technologies, that's gone now, and this is a whole new kind of fight.
Yeah, I do think it's a whole new fight. And I said on our podcast episode that I think this is actually one of the most important, fights that agriculture really needs to be paying attention to. There's a lot of different things I want to touch on what you brought up, but going off of, that train of thought, I do think that right now for agriculture, there is a difference between farmers and big ag in general. I think this conversation, as you said, with this sway of the amount of people, right, left, or, indifferent, moderate, I think the majority is going to fall in camp with, not saying RFK politically, but I'm saying this thought process that ultra processed foods is bad, big food is bad, big pharma is bad. I think the percentage of people that will align with that is going to be very, very large. And I think for agriculture, as you pointed out, I don't think, you brought this up to me because I actually reached out to you to get your, pick your brain kind of on the glyphosate conversation. And you mentioned that to me, that might be the first time that, the agriculture industry, rural America, is maybe at war with, or not aligned typically with who we would politically. And I think that's really, really important with this conversation, knowing how important I personally think how agriculture responds to this big food, big pharma conversation can dictate how the consumer and our relationship with them moves forward. Because I really think, as I said, right now, farmers are the good guy. I still think that we get that pull of percentage trust. I do think there's obviously misinformation and activists, and I think there's this, loud conversation of people that try to, sway the general population on a farmer's role. But how we respond to this, I think, will either lump us in with big food and big pharma or distinguish us out of it. And I think that is something that, as you said, maybe agriculture isn't properly prepared for to have a conversation about.
Yeah, and I'm totally with you that this is a much larger package where people are like, I can look around and I see there are obese people. There's all these mental health problems. All the things that get thrown in it. Girls maturing faster than they normally would, and they're saying, not only is it ultra processed foods, but by the way, there's glyphosate in your food. And oh, by the way, there's GMOs in there. And if you're just a person that's like, what is going on? Somebody give me an answer that I can understand. All of that package is going to be delivered into your mind, and inside of your little memeplex that describes how you see the world, it's going to include things like we're being poisoned by the farmers. And it's going to be indistinguishable. And frankly, there's going to be a whole lot of people that are married to a farmer or who's, are connected to farming that are going to get really, really suspicious of what's going on at the farm. And so this cultural allies that have been there are disintegrating. And the question is, who are you going to go find that wants to be on your team, that you can figure out a way to explain and outcompete the memes that are being dropped in by Vani Hari? Because that is who wins the cultural war. It's who gets their memes into the minds of the people.
Yeah, there was actually to one of the discussion points Tara and I had when we talked about this is that the round table that, Callie Means, Casey Means, and RFK, which I would say are probably the three that really headed that round table. There were doctors on it, but there was also just a lot of like influencers, food activists, people that like Vani Hari, Food Babe. I think her degree was in like, I don't even know, science something. I think I remember reading like political science, or I can't quite remember, but nothing to do with the realms she talks in now, which I can't really point the finger at because I'm coming from a pharmacist background, and I'm online talking about food and farming, but I am a rancher. I did grow up in agriculture, right? So I don't necessarily think your education has to base, what you talk about online. But I think a lot of people had an issue with it. There was a lot of, Alex Clark, like just a political, now food wellness podcast host, right? That is on this panel. Like, what is their expertise? Why are they there? What are they contributing? And in my mind, I was like, that makes absolute sense because as you said, they want this roundtable to go to the next step. They're going to want the loudest voice, the person who has the most influence online and that can sway people politically with their words online, with images, with memes, like with a short reel caption, like whatever it is. That is the world we live in, good or bad, indifferent. So I thought it was, interesting to dissect who they had on the panel too.
Well, and who they had on there, like, those people are way more effective and they have an opportunity that had not been there before because the nutritionists and the dietitians, whatever the one is that you have to be registered, right? Those groups did get co-opted by big food and big ag. And I watched it happen. I was there when what happens is you have registered dietitians that are the people that go through all the college and all the accreditation, and they want to have conferences. And in order to have those conferences, the membership either needs to pay as individuals or somebody can sponsor it. And if somebody sponsors it, well, then they're the ones that get to put on the luncheon and they're the ones that get to stand up and pay for awards and pay for keynote speakers and pay for these things to all come together. And so you have these registered dietitians that start off by being like, I know that big food isn't doing things that are right, but you know what? I am going to give them a chance because I'm open-minded. And then before you know it, they are so dependent on that money that it becomes ubiquitous. It's like water flowing through there. And so these people that went to school to study this and to come up with their I want to help people are now being so heavily influenced by the food companies and the big ag companies that when it comes time for them to say something, they say things like, Lucky Charms are as healthy for your breakfast as whatever else. And like that does not pass the smell test with anyone. So then they start looking for people like Vani Hari that'll tell the truth compared to what these dietitians are doing.